our former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who has, guess what, failed to rule out that he may come back into the front line of politics. Joining me now is the political correspondent at The Spectator, another good friend of mine, James Heale. James, thank you very much for joining us there. I can see you in The Spectator's very posh offices in Westminster with the oak panelling behind you, just in case our viewers thought you were at home. Boris Johnson, in a speech to Georgetown University on a sort of perambulation around North America, taking in the United States and Canada, has sort of shown a bit more ankle about whether he's going to come back to Parliament. Is this what Boris Johnson wants us always to be talking about, or is this serious?
I think that Boris Johnson always likes to be talked about, but I do think that it's not really a surprise in the sense of, I think for the foreseeable short-term future is out of it. Certainly this side of an election, he doesn't want to come back as an MP. Longer term, who knows with Boris, he'll always have a certain charisma and of course, I think a certain connection with voters in 2016 and 2019. But yes, he said in this comments to Georgetown, he said, you should only be an MP if you have something to contribute. And maybe while I think that Boris Johnson always has something to contribute, not least given his constant Mail articles, perhaps he feels that the legislative sphere is not the right one for him at the current time.
It's interesting because I'm actually going to his 60th birthday in a few weeks' time. I wasn't invited to Nigel Farage's. Nigel, if you're watching, I'm very disappointed. So if he did come back into politics, he would be, after the general election, as you say, hoping to maybe stand at the election after that. He could potentially be as old as 65 when he came back into political sphere, which would be quite unusual with our leaders and politicians just getting younger and younger.
It would be, although I think I'm just trying to think off the top of my head how old Churchill was when he came back. I think when he was Prime Minister in 1940. So that would be in a comparison. Obviously, Mr. Johnson would very much welcome being his political hero. I mean, George Galloway, of course, I think he's about 69, just made a comeback at the by-election. And you can never rule off Boris because what we're seeing right now, Jake, I think, is the disappearance of Boris politician and the re-emergence sort of from the cocoon-like state of the butterfly of Boris Johnson, the columnist. And so Boris always has a view on something, always has something to say, and he will always be a powerful voice, typically on the right of the British media. So I think that people will be influenced by him. He's a man who makes the political weather rather than sort of function like a meteorologist telling you what's happening. He will continue to have an influence, even if he's not going to be in the front line himself.
Well, I say come back, Boris. We need you in the Conservative Party. Look, on him making political weather, he's done a little bit of a shot, if you like, at Rishi Sunak on this idea of banning smoking forever for everyone currently aged 15 and under. What's Boris's view on that?
Yeah, he says that, he couldn't believe that the party of Churchill was going to be banning cigars. And I think really, again, it's something he saw a lot in his Telegraph columns from 10 years ago or so, which was about, Boris the Libertarian and suggesting you shouldn't tell people what to do. Of course, in office, he ended up, partly by events, having to lock the country down, etc. But it was quite a different tone. And I think that he is speaking to a certain bit of the party, which feels that often with Rishi Sunak, it's quite sort of nannying, quite bossy. And I think, if this was Roundheads and Cavaliers, Boris Johnson would certainly be a Cavalier and want people to have the freedom to enjoy their life. And I think right now, given the state of politics and the managerial kind of bland corporate nature of a lot of it, that has a certain resonance with a lot of voters and some people in Parliament too.